This is the 12th Conference on National Scenic and Historic Trails in Missoula, Montana, with guest speakers Steve Dudley and Mike Dawson.
PCTA's board is a governance board. They have three board committees, period. No more board committees. One is fundraising, one is board development, and one is and one is the finance committee. Okay? So what they're about, the majority of their work is involved in getting resources for the organization to do its work, making sure that the organization spends those resources wisely and appropriately, and making sure that new people come on the board who can do those things. Everything else that PCTA does, it does through our management structure. So where's our management structure, right? Those people who spent 30 years working on the trail, who know all about how to build water bars and do drainage and build side hill and how to manage a trail. Where are those people? Those people are in management committees. And those management committees are directed by our staff. So the vast majority of everything we do, we have an executive director, we have a staff under that executive director, and getting the magazine published, getting the trail work done, writing the agreements and getting an AmeriCorps crew on the ground, making sure that the volunteers on the Willamette National Forest know how to do their work well. That is all falls under the staff. Does that mean that the staff does all the work? Heck no. We got 7 people in trail operations to manage 2,650 miles of remote mountain trail. How successful would that be if they tried to do all the work? So all those volunteers are organized to do their work through the staff, and the board oversees the results. So it's 2 very different models, that management board and the governance board. So, on the staff?
Just a few more comments.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So, once you have a board fully established, you have the right people in the right spots on your board, I want to just touch on 2 other things before we get into staff. And one is communication. And I'm sure Mike has a lot of stories to tell about working out communication issues as they move from a managing board to a governing board. What we're interested in is how well the board is communicating among itself and what needs to happen to foster that communication so that board members are identified with the workings of the board vibrantly, and they just don't come to a semi-annual meeting, spend a day with us, and then forget about our organization until the next board meeting. We have to stay in communication, and that's partly staff work to keep that communication viable. And then we have to get communication between our committees, because what's going on with the fundraising committee or the development committee impacts the governance committee as it raises, as it goes after board members. And likewise, in the search for board members, they're going to come up with a lot of potential donors that they need to be communicating back to the development committee. And so we have to form systems, processes, structures in our organization that promote communication in between the committees themselves. And then the most obvious one is to communicate between the board and the staff, and how is that done? See, so that's what we're working on now. That's why we've assigned a staff member to every one of our board committees. And the next step we have to work on is how do we get our board committees to communicate among themselves or between themselves. Finally, I'll end my comments with learning, because most of the organizations learn through experience. And we try things out, whether it's how to build a trail or how to build an organization or how to build a board. And some of these things we try work, and some of the things we try don't work. And both cases are learning opportunities if we capitalize on them. What did we learn that works that we should continue, and how are we going to make sure that we continue to do the right things again and again and again? What did we learn from what didn't work, and how are we going to change that so the next time we try, it goes better? And are we monitoring the results of those changes and assessing whether or not our decisions have made a positive difference? And if so, what does that tell us about what we do in the future? And what are those things that we aren't even doing or even thinking about that we should be thinking about on the board? And how do we learn those things? And that's where we bring in people from outside. Like, for example, our board brought in Mike to talk to the board last year about some of the areas that they've gone through, because the board realized that it wasn't even maybe asking the right questions. And we don't know what we don't know, except if you're a politician. We learned differently in the last 8 years about that. So, give learning. On your board then, once you get your board constituted correctly, that should be a topic right on your agenda. How are we going to capture our lessons? How are we going to continue learning as an organization and as a board? So with that, I'm going to stop. Do we want to take board questions now, or do you want to go right into staff development? Maybe we should go into staff development and then take general questions.
So let's talk a little bit about who you might hire to help your organization do their work. And we have a staff of 13 full-time people and I think 5 seasonals this year. And we are building a program. 5 years ago when I came to PCTA, we had three employees, and they were all in Sacramento, California. And we were trying to figure out how we were going to be more effective at what we were doing. And it was a real easy sell. Okay, so our main office is in Sacramento. How much attention does the Cleveland National Forest on the Mexican border get? How much attention does the Methow Ranger District on the Canadian border get? None. So our relations with volunteers who are working on the trail, the agency offices that were involved in the trail, were at a very, very low level. And so one of the first things we did was we took a page out of how the Appalachian Trail Conference tried to build their program by making regional offices. So we've been adding one regional office a year for the last 4 years, and in 2 months we'll have another. And we have one more to go. So eventually we'll have 6 regional offices scattered up and down 2,600 miles of trail. Each office takes care of 500, 550 miles of trail. And those offices open as one person out of a home office. Very basic. And then they move on to opening a public office. And then who do you need in that office to run the programs that you are building?
Trail management is the topic of discussion here. That's part 4. Stay tuned for part 5 for more on the 12th Conference on National Scenic and Historic Trails in Missoula, Montana.